So thank you for joining, everybody, and good afternoon. So we are Eperformance, and before we get started, we'll just do kind of a high-level introduction and overview of the solution, and then we'll kind of dive right into the implementation case study. So my name's Michael Manishin. I'm the Vice President of Client Services here at Eperformance. And I'm joined by Divya Ramachandran, who's our lead product owner and also customer success manager. And yeah, so what we'll be covering today is, a high-level overview of what Grant Plus for Scholarships is, the implementation case study, which I mentioned, the key features and benefits of the solution, and then as well as a questions and answer period at the end. So a little bit about us as a company, Eperformance. We have 20 plus years experience specializing in medium to large enterprise grants management solutions based off Microsoft technologies. We are a Microsoft certified partner, and we work with many different organizations, both public and private, for promoting better practices in grants management. So we've been around a while. We've learned a lot of the industry lingo, tricks, etc., and have been really heavily focused on grants management and processes and efficiencies. We're recommended by Microsoft for its clients, and also we're staffed with certified Microsoft professionals and grant automation specialists. So many of our staff are certified through Microsoft, and with our partnership with Microsoft, we maintain that certifications moving forward. So quickly about Grant Plus before we get into kind of the case study. Grant Plus is a cloud-based solution application leveraging Microsoft Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform to support the automation of grants and scholarships management. So it's on a Microsoft platform, and it has kind of many different components and feature sets that allow the automation of the grants and scholarships. It provides a full range of functionality for scholarship management, end-to-end workflows, including student application process, review and approvals, agreements, administration, and performance tracking, many of which you will see in a little bit today. And it is designed to support any and all scholarship programs and can be configured to meet the unique requirements of any institution providing funding. So kind of a really important note that we want to mention before we kick this off. If you're watching and you see yourself in the scenario that we're going over, that's great. But if you see kind of minor adjustments, or your process is a little bit different, it's ordered differently, etc., our system is fully configurable. So we would be able to kind of work with you, learn what the differences are, and adjust them in relative short order. So without further ado, I'll pass it off to Divya to take us through the case study today, and then we'll get to the overview of the feature set and the question and answer period afterwards.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. I'm Divya Ramachandran. I'm the lead product owner and customer success manager at Eperformance. What I'll do is, as Michael mentioned, start with a case study on scholarship. It is a particular scenario that we're walking through today, but as Michael said, the system has the capability to be reconfigured to suit your needs and your business processes. And we can definitely answer questions around that as you see it. So just to start, as a background for our case study today, we have a scholarship set up for 2024, for example, and Edwina Dantes, who's a student, is looking for a scholarship to support her educational goals. And as she searches online, she comes up with an option called the 2024 French Studies Bursary Program at the Eperformance site. There are a few participants today that we'll be looking at from their perspective how the process flows from beginning to the end of the scholarship program. So we have the scholarship coordinator, we have the student, of course, who's the main applicant. We have a screening analyst who will be coordinating all the different activities in terms of managing the different applications coming in. We have 2 faculty reviewers who will be doing the review or the initial assessment of the applications that come in, and then a selection committee lead who will be talking through with the reviewers, looking at the different aspects of the applications and assessing who should be awarded the scholarship. We also have the financial aid officer who would provide guidance and support in terms of getting the payments through. And in the last phase of the cycle, after the scholarship is awarded, when the student has to provide their progress report, there would be a supervisor playing the role of identifying if the scholarship money is being utilized appropriately and providing their feedback in terms of how the student is doing. So just let's get started. And as I walk through each slide, what I'll also do is show you how the system has the information and walk you through the different steps that the system records for the information that I'm showing you on screen. So we start off with the scholarship coordinator who initiates the setup of the program. So Debbie, who is the scholarship coordinator, logs into the system, something that we call as the Power Apps back office or the scholarship office. She sets it up in terms of what the details are about the scholarship, what the dates are, when it will go live, and things like that. So before we move to the next slide, I'll show you what that looks like in the system itself. So this is what we call as the program office or the scholarship funding office. Powered through Power Apps and something that is used from an administrative perspective by the university or the department providing the funding for the scholarship. So if it's Debbie who comes in, she sets up the funding program, provides all the details, provides the deadline dates in terms of when the scholarship will go live, and some pertinent information in terms of the details. For example, what the scholarship entails, what the procedures are, etc. And I'll show you what that looks like from the applicant's perspective. So this would be the first step in setting up the scholarship itself. Once that is done, we are looking at the student's perspective who's coming in to fill the scholarship application. So Edwina, who's the student looking to apply for the scholarship, looks through the guidelines of the 2024 French Studies Bursary Scholarship, registers herself to the portal, opens up the application form and fills out the necessary information as documented, and then also provides a digital attestation confirming that she is going to adhere to the terms and conditions of the application. When we go back to the system, from a student's perspective, the view is slightly different. So this would be what we call as the end user portal for the system. So anyone like Edwina, for example, as a student who's coming in to apply, who wants to put in funding applications can come into the portal. By default, we use something called as the Microsoft Entra ID authentication when it comes to signing in, which also is factored to have multi-factor authentications so that there is added security, because there is quite a bit of personal information that is being shared with the funding university. And when she comes in, she looks at the different opportunities that are available. Is she can look at the details of each one, for example, and see what is available in terms of what the scholarship provides. So it provides a description, the amount, for example, what the eligibility criteria are for applying to the scholarship, the different application procedures, evaluation criteria, and the decisions and every other aspect of the scholarship itself. So a lot of the details can be come in, and as you can see, it can be put into different formats, different color combinations, a lot of flexibility in terms of providing the details for each scholarship. So she goes back to the funding opportunity. She also notices that only 2 of them are open. This is another configuration that can be done where if a scholarship program doesn't need to be open till a period of time, it can remain disabled for application. But then if there is, during the period it is open, we can have the apply button enabled, and then she can just go in, click apply. And what it does is it opens up the application form for that funding in terms of first identifying what the eligibility criteria is. So this is one way of configuring it, where each question comes up she has to select yes to each of the and qualify as an eligible applicant for this before the submit button gets enabled. So as you can see, it enables each question after, but they can also all be displayed to the applicant at one time. And now if she doesn't select the right value, for example, if she says she's not any of these kind of residents, the submit button just won't enable, which kind of adds a quality check right off the bat in terms of making sure that only eligible participants can apply for the application. So in this case, I'm going to say Canadian citizen, which now qualifies for all of the eligibility criteria, and she can go ahead and submit an application. So after the eligibility criteria are met, what happens is an application form opens up. And the application form will provide the details in terms of what that funding program is looking for in terms of the students' information for that funding. It's a bit slow today, but what it is going to look like is this. So there's a few pages that the applicant has to fill out. There's a few details that are absolutely required from an applicant's perspective because the funding program needs that information. So for example, they have the basic applicant information in terms of their names, date of birth, and address. They can also provide their institution information in terms of what they've already accomplished in terms of their studies or their undergraduate or any other equivalent educational institution program. They can put in their institution information. So if the funding authorities want to contact the institution and identify whether the student actually did do the program in their facility, that is an option as well. And they can also provide what they're going to be studying for in the future when they are applying for the scholarship. So the details of what the anticipated dates of study are can also be provided, and a few scholarship questions can be added. So as you can see, there's different options in terms of what the pages can display. So it's very flexible and configurable in terms of what kinds of data can be entered. In this case, for example, it's a text entry. We have drop-down values. We have option sets in terms of what the lookup is going to be. And it also allows for different kinds of validation rules to be set up. So one of the examples I'm going to show you is something that I have already created. So for example, in this case, I've already filled out the form. And as you can see, it allows to show the user a check, in which case it means or indicates to the user that they have actually filled out that page. It enables them to identify all the pages that need to be filled out. And it also provides kind of a progress rate in terms of how many pages are left. So in this case, as you can see, 4 of the pages are completed. It's at 80% completion, but supporting documents is still left to be completed. So now when I go to supporting documents, for example, as Edwina, I'm wondering what's happening here. So I look at the documents that are already being loaded. So just give it a second here. As you can see, there's documents already uploaded, but it doesn't actually say that I have completed my validation. So I click validate and save, and then it tells me that, oh, actually, I need 2 evidence of enrollment 2 essay paper publication documents before I can proceed. So this adds kind of another quality check from a scholarship office perspective, because that way they don't have to go back and forth with the applicant saying you missed this, you missed adding this document, you missed adding that document, you missed this data. So a lot of the quality checks can happen right off the bat when the application form is being filled in. So that way there's less manual work, there's a faster turnaround time in terms of processing the application as well. So as you can see, I have finished all the forms. It's 100% complete. And the last step that Edwina as an applicant has to do is attest to the conditions of the program. All of these pages, the text that's displayed is all configurable as well, and it can be bilingual as well. So in this case, I can display the information in English and French, but of course you can also display it in other languages depending on the language that needs to be provided to the end user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click I agree and just submit the form. So this finishes Edwina's application for the funding program for the 2024 French bursaries. And once the application is submitted, what also displays for the user itself is a PDF option. So Edwina can download the PDF for her records in terms of what she submitted um, in for the application. This is again also configurable. We've set it up as very basic right now, but we a lot of branding can be set up. The different configurations in terms of what the PDF displays versus what it doesn't display can also be configured. But it provides a basic summary of all that was filled in during the application so that it can be used as a reference for later. Another thing also is even the portal can be branded. In this case, for example, we have our Eperformance logo and the footer shows that, but we have options in terms of setting up the branding according to your organization and the color theme according to your organization. So a lot of flexibility on that front as well to reconfigure it based on what it should display from your organization's perspective. So that completes Edwina's application submission. And then what happens is now that the submission is put in, and a lot of other submissions will come in. So from an administration perspective, there is a screening analyst, Sophie, who needs to go through and review all the applications that have come in. She'll do an initial assessment to see if all the applications have the information that they have provided. What she does is she finds that Edwina's application is complete. She has provided all the documents necessary. She's filled out all the details as needed. And she decides, okay, Edwina's application can go to the next step in terms of having an initial review with the faculty members. Alternatively, if Edwina's application was incomplete, for example, Sophie has the option to enable it again in terms of setting it up for amendment, where it will go back to Edwina saying, Edwina, your application is not complete. Please submit it again. So one other note to also do is in terms of emails. So once Edwina submits her application, for example, an automatic email can be triggered from the system saying you have submitted your application and she basically has to wait for next steps. So something again that's also configurable in terms of what is displayed, which language is displayed, how it's displayed. So it can also be displayed, for example, French first and then English. So it there's a lot of flexibility in terms of configuration from that aspect as well. So that's just Edwina's application. And now we just go back into the system to I'll show you what Sophie's view is going to look like. So Sophie, as the scholarship office administrator or screening analyst, goes into the dashboard. So this is something that Power Apps allows you to set up, which is a dashboard through the system itself. It can display data with different forms of charts. A lot of information can be set up in terms of what to display in terms of like just a quick overview of the applications, of accounts, of when the data was submitted, things like that. So a lot of flexibility around that as well. And it actually shows the different options in terms of who submitted, what the data is. A lot of analytical information can be identified from this as well. So what Sophie does is she goes to the records for active submissions and she identifies, okay, Edwina, there is a new submitted application here. Let me just open that from just to review all the information that has been submitted from the portal. So Edwina submitted the application form for the 2024 French studies, and what as Sophie, as the screening analyst, just identifies and walks through each of the tabs to do the due diligence. So as she's doing that, what she does is she sets up a decision saying she's doing the next step as the start due diligence. So this is called as the decision engine, which we utilize to identify at what stage the application is. So for example, in this case, for less than a minute, and active within the last 20 hours, for example, the due diligence phase has been implemented and it's going through the next stage. So Sophie is doing her due diligence. She's going through and identifying each and every information is populated. She's making sure there is a agreement of the terms and conditions, and she's also seeing that the supporting documents are in there in terms of what is provided. By default, we set up the documents to be uploaded on SharePoint directly. This seems to have been broken for some reason, but we can configure it to display on SharePoint. But there are also other options where we can integrate to other systems for document storage. So all the documents, instead of storing them within Power Apps itself, they can be uploaded to SharePoint and maintained as a history of information related to the submission. So now that Sophie has decided Advina's application is complete, what she does is she says due diligence has passed, which again records the information in terms of the decision history. So if someone other than Sophie is also coming in and making a decision, that decision history will be maintained for future reference or in terms of auditing, for example. So now that Sophie's application is complete, what the next step would be to set up some reviewers. So what Sophie will do is she'll go to the review tab and she'll identify who the active or suggested reviewers are. In this case, she identifies there are 5 reviewers applicable and can be selected from. And what she'll do is she'll just create a single review for each of them. So she's going to select Leila, for example, create a review for Leila, who's going to be a reviewer, and the next one for Felix. So she set up 2 reviews to be done on this application. So each reviewer has to log in and review the application in terms of the next steps. So the next step would be for the reviewers to come in and review the application. So that's where the faculty reviewers, Felix and Leila, come in, and they do a preliminary evaluation. So in this case, Felix and Leila log into the portal. They review they have a reviewer profile enabled, which allows for any conflict of interest declaration. For example, if they have a conflict of interest for that particular funding, they can provide that information to the scholarship admin so that the review can be removed from that particular application and applied to a separate one, because the reviewers need to be objective in terms of the submissions. Once the reviews are available to them on the portal, and this is something that they do similar to how the applicant does on the external portal, it can be done internally as well. It's just a different configuration. Both are possible to do. It doesn't have to be that they have to access the portal itself. They do an acceptance of Advina's application, and they provide a score. So what I'm going to show you is as a reviewer, for example, I've logged in as Felix. So this is the reviewer profile that I talked about in terms of they provide their own information in terms of what they've done in the past, if they have any reviewing history, that kind of thing. And they also attest to the confidentiality and conflict of interest declaration. So as panel members, there are some things that they have to keep in mind. And this provides the information to them in terms of accepting that they don't have a conflict of interest, and they are going to adhere to the confidentiality clauses set up. Once this is done and they go to my reviews, for example, they can see the reviews that have been assigned to them. In this case, for example, Advina's review has been assigned to Felix, and he has gone in and he's going to see, okay, this is Advina Dantes, the academic information in terms of where she finished her university, and the reviewer acceptance. As you can see, there's not much information provided yet. We kind of added a second conflict of interest declaration to identify if they're reviewing the application or not based on the information that they see for the applicant. For example, if they know someone called Advina Dantes in that particular university, maybe it provides a conflict of interest as well from that perspective. But if they don't, they can just do, I will be reviewing the application, and it opens up further pages from the original submission. So Felix, for example, can now see Advina's original application documents and review the application based on the information that's provided. So it kind of adds a second level of security in terms of making sure only the reviewer who has access to the system is able to, access to the, does not have a conflict of interest, has access to the information that is for Edwina, for example. So he can download, Felix can download each of the documents, review it, and then after that, provide a reviewer evaluation. So again, all of these pages are configurable. In this case, we've provided some high level, options in terms of how the scoring will be set up and provided more information text as well. But if your organization does reviews in a different format, or it needs to have reviews done in the administration office or the back office, like I showed you, that can also be configured. So what I'm going to do is, as Felix, I'm just going to say I'm scoring this based on my understanding, and then just submit the review. So what Leila and Felix do is they submit their individual reviews, and Sophie, what she will do is she'll do a refresh, for example, and she, from the review perspective, she'll identify that one of the reviews is accepted and submitted, but Leila still has to accept and submit. So she will proceed this to the next stage and say reviewer accepted. And because I have set up some data previously, what I'm going to show you is another option in terms of reviews have been completed. So in this case, for example, the reviews have been completed by both Felix and Leila, and it does an average scoring of the both the reviews. So in this case, the average of both Felix and Leila's reviews are scored for the application itself. And because of this, and because it has a high score, Sophie decides to go ahead and select Edwina's application to go into the committee review. So now it sets eligible for selection for the next stage of the application. Going to the next slide here. So what happens is Sophie, through the review process, which could take between a month or 3 months, because all the applications have to be reviewed individually by faculty members. Sophie sets up rules and views in the background to make sure that she assesses which groups of applicants can navigate to the next evaluation round, and then sets up a committee review round in terms of having like the top 8, for example, the top 8 reviewed applications that can go to the committee. So in that sense, what she does is she goes back to my submissions, and if you can notice here, these submissions have different views. This is called as a view, kind of a report provided based on different filters, what the table or the records have, and it allows Sophie to get a clearer picture of what the applications have in terms of the next round. So for example, 8 of these now applications can go to the next round because their scoring system is high. The scoring is just a basic average in this case from the demo perspective, but they can all be configured to be dependent on how you use your evaluation criteria in terms of scoring. Different math rules, different systems in terms of scoring based on, for example, 2024 French studies could have a different scoring system. Another program or funding or scholarship can have a different scoring system. So that again is something that can be configured in the system as well. So in this case, for example, Sophie identifies that 8 of the applicants have high scores, and Edwina's is one of them. So what she does is she sets up a committee review in terms of having a committee for the applications to be reviewed, and she sets up the committee members. So the committee members in this case, for example, there's Felix and Leila, who also happen to be faculty members, but there's also Mark, who's kind of the lead of the committee. We can set up the committees to have the documents uploaded to either SharePoint, we can have it updated on the portal, a lot of different flexibility in terms of how the committee members see the applications. And what will happen is, in the next steps, we have the selection committee review meeting. So maybe an online meeting. we can also provide, for example, a Teams link within the meeting in the system, schedule it within as tasks for the reviewer committee members, or it can be done offline as well, where the information after the meeting comes into the system and sets it up. So in this scenario, for example, Mark, Felix, and Leila meet up. They review all 8 candidates. They review the application submission documents. They look at all the reviewer comments, the scoring, and identify who is going to get awarded the scholarship. So in this case, they review everything. They make a consensus on the top 3 individuals who will be receiving a scholarship, and Edwina being one of them. And what will happen is she will get a congratulatory letter in addition to the other winners. So once Edwina gets a congratulatory letter, there is an option to display an agreement form for her on the portal, where she has to accept the terms and conditions of receiving the scholarship money. Non-winners, for example, the system can trigger an email saying the winners, the people who have not won, can proceed further in their education through other programs, or whatever kind of information that you would like to encourage other applicants to proceed with in the email itself. So I have 2 email examples here. One is, for example, Edwina gets the congratulatory letter. Again, very configurable. A lot of different elements can be modified here in terms of what is displayed. And as you can see, it opens up it populates the information directly from the system. For example, the name of the applicant, the name of the funding program that they have applied to, and it also provides the link to the portal and other options. Also, the option available is to send emails to people who didn't win. So, for example, just a polite email saying, even though they didn't get it, they can proceed with other opportunities in the future, things like that. A lot of flexibility in terms of setting up those emails as well. So those are 2 examples of emails that go out in the system from a congratulatory letter perspective. So now that a congratulatory letter has been sent, Edwina can log into the portal and see the agreement form. So in this case, for example, I've logged in as Edwina. I have the agreement form open, and what it shows is a set of basic information, but also the conditions in terms of accepting or denying the scholarship. For example, for whatever reason, if Edwina has had applied for a scholarship and received something else, for example, she can decline this one. But if she does accept, she is able to validate and save. And as you can see, she has to either accept or deny before she can save, and this can continue to the next step. So what she does is she accepts the scholarship for the 2024 French bursary, and she submits the form. So once the form is submitted, the decision goes to the next phase. And as you can see, there is a download option as well in terms of downloading the agreement form as well. Now, the next step would be for the actual funding to be pushed to the applicant. So David, who's the financial aid officer, works with Sophie in the scholarship office Power Apps background and sets up the payment milestones to provide Edwina the scholarship disbursement, and also works with accounts receivable in the background to send the payment. So that's something that can be set up in terms of integrating the system with the payment system, for example, SAP, where the information directly is exchanged between the systems so that the manual processing of that doesn't need to happen. So in this case, for example, we have an option to set up for 4 semesters, or 3, for example, because the last is 0, for 3 semesters of payments. And what it does is it sets these milestones up in the system. It can be integrated with the SAP or any other financial system, for example, through something called as Power Automate that Power Apps provides, so that the information is exchanged directly within the system. And then the decision is set to, if the payment proceeds further, the decision can be proceeded to first payment paid. So for example, we say that Edwina's first payment is complete. She's received the scholarship amount, and now she is in the monitoring phase. So in the monitoring phase, for example, there can be different elements in terms of next steps. So as an example for today's demo, what we have is assuming that 6 months have passed since the scholarship payment has been sent, and Edwina receives an email reminder saying that she has to provide a progress report of her work. Just to show that she's utilizing the scholarship money appropriately. And what it does is it opens up another form on the portal. So that way it doesn't have to be a manual process. It doesn't have to be emails. It is all done through the system and maintained within the system itself. So it opens up a progress report form that Edwina fills out where she provides her supervisor's information, which is Simone. And then Simone can also log in to the same form and provide the information in terms of her feedback and attest to the fact that Edwina is following the scholarship funding process and meeting the milestones that have been set. If not satisfactory, for example, if Simone says the progress is not going well, the payment can be withdrawn, emails can be sent in terms of next steps, an appeal process can be set up. So other options are also possible to be set up within the system itself. In today's demo, for example, Edwina gets a reminder email 6 months after the first payment in terms of just logging into the portal and providing the progress report. So what she does is she logs into the portal. Just going to do a quick refresh here. She opens up the menu. All right, sorry, I have it here. Okay, she opens up the menu and she sees the progress report here. So the progress report kind of shows some basic instructions in terms of what needs to be provided, and also provides the option to provide who the supervisor is and provide some details on the progress report. Sophie, for example, once she logs in as the supervisor, can also add additional information. So as you can see, the supervisor has their own option in terms of providing comments on the progress report, which the student will not have. It will only be visible to the supervisor and the administration office. The student will not be able to see the assessment provided. However, if your organization shares that information in terms of providing the visibility to the student as well, that is also something that can be configured. In this example, we just have it kind of like a security measure, for example, in terms of what the supervisor provides in the assessment. So we just do a validate and save. And then that completes kind of like the monitoring process. So it can be done just a progress report 6 months, but it can also be done 6 months after each additional payment, for example. So in this case, I say, okay, additional payments are applicable, and we're talking about maybe having this flow through between different years, between different annual periods, and between how many milestones are set, or depending on what the scholarship funding process is in terms of how often the payment is, how many installments are done, etc. So now that assuming we are like through in terms of additional payments, the scholarship is closed, all the payments are done, the student has finished the scholarship education program, and what can be also done is that the application itself can be closed because there is no more nothing more to be maintained in that particular application itself. And as you can see, it then sets it to inactive and closed. So this way, the entire application process, right from the beginning where the student applies, or actually even before that, when the scholarship is set up, to the applications actually being closed, can all be done within the system itself with as minimum manual intervention as possible. And all of that can be recorded in the system where audit trails can be set up in terms of the information that has been managed throughout the life cycle of the funding program. So that covers our main case study in terms of providing that information. There's a few other slides in terms of how different additional scenarios can also be set up in the system. So for example, we can set it up for like each scholarship can be configured separately. They can also be configured to have different application forms or the same application form. They can be for a single year or multiple years. It depends on what kind of scholarship that you want to set up and what kind of programs and applicants you want to have coming into the system. It is also possible, for example, not only just to have the portal where the applicant comes in and fills the form online, but if for whatever reason the applicant doesn't have access to the internet or cannot fill the form online, the program office does have the option to fill that application manually on behalf of the applicant. So that is also something that is possible. Reporting, multiple types of reports and dashboards, like I showed you, can be set up. We can also set it up using Power BI, which has a lot more analytical capabilities in the system, which can track and the trends across different years for the system, or even publish that data to the end user in terms of like what the scholarship program provided, and also the winners and the stats around the scholarship program and the different programs as well. Additionally, integration, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how the system can be integrated with multiple other systems. So for example, GC key, secure key, Google authentication can be done through different aspects. Document storage can be done outside of SharePoint. There can be something called GC Docs or any other storage application. Other systems, for example, SAP HR or SAP Payment, Microsoft Office, because it's a Microsoft platform, it is integratable with any application on Microsoft, especially Microsoft Office in terms of Excel, Outlook, etc. If you wanted to do online agreements through applications like DocuSign or Adobe Sign, etc., that's also available. And it has the options for protecting you from other cyber attacks and websites and having that set up in terms of site secure, etc. Just getting into some of the key features that we kind of talked about already. So program management. One of the main things is we can set up different kinds of programs and funding opportunities. Multiple elements can be set up for the scholarship itself, whether it be done through the portal or through like different validation rules in terms of what the program provides and what the applicant or the reviewer or any other user role has to provide through the portal or the back office for that matter. It has the option for application intake like we saw. Again, very flexible in terms of configuration, bilingual, multilingual if where needed. And also it provides additional capability in terms of having different pages available to different users. So reviewers will not see applications, for example, unless they absolutely have to, or if there are different types of users, example, an analyst who does not actually require the entire access of back office, they can also log into the portal, for example. So a lot of different capabilities in that sense. Application assessment and decisions, a full review of the submission, as we saw, can be done with by the program administrators. It has the option to enable amendments to forms and decisions. And there's multiple decision phases that it can go through right from the beginning and going into getting the agreement for the applicant, or, for example, if it gets rejected. And then again, administration and monitoring, as the cycles go through, as the annual period goes through for the scholarship, for example, a lot of different capabilities in terms of monitoring how the process is going, the payments are following through, and then just setting up reports and progress dashboards in terms of next steps on setting up either new programs or just following up on existing programs and applications. Just a quick overview of the key system features as we went through. The portal, as I mentioned, has capability to have secure access. So log in through Microsoft Entra ID or any other option in terms of secure authentication. Multi-factor authentication can be enabled where they have to, like, for example, provide a security code received via email or via the phone. As an example, we can set up users and organization profiles. So for example, we just did the applicant signing up for the application without actually providing institution information outside of in the application form. But we have also the option to have it per institution. So they have to select an institution before they can apply for an application or funding. So there's a lot of flexibility there as well. Multilingual, as I mentioned, WCAG is basically for Canadian compliance in terms of uh, accessibility, but it also has the compliance for other tools as well. So by default, it is WCAG 2.1 AA compliant. So it is viewable by accessibility and special needs people, and it operates at a protected B security level, which is something that the Treasury Board of Canada kind of utilizes in terms of securing the data and the information coming through, and having it displayed to the user in terms of data protected, because there is some personal information as noted in terms of even payment and just information that the institution is sharing with the applicant, etc. We have the option for setting up notification center where the program office can send information to the applicant directly on the portal. So similar to how CRA sets up personal notifications, where you log into the portal and you see the specific notification versus exchanging personal information or sensitive information via email. There's the other option called service requests, where the applicant, if they have questions, can send questions directly in the system to the program office as well. We saw document uploads and downloads, and it is also mobile compatible. So you don't have to access it through the laptop itself or the PC mobile compatibility. And it has the option for different user roles. So applicants, reviewers, supervisors, as we saw. So a lot of different options there. And as we saw for the program office, we have different options to set up funding programs, but we can also set up leads and opportunities. So if that's something that your account managers maintain, for example, that's an option. Maintaining the different grants and contributions files, we can set up appointments and tasks within the system itself, set up agreements and approvals, as we kind of saw, performance, maintaining stats and progress reports, and also setting up amendments to the applications, managing the payments, repayments, as we noted for Edwina's example, and also setting up audit and closeout activities, which can be done through the system as well, to maintain the history and see who's done what kind of activity within the system. It also has something called as the teams and security management, where you can have a hierarchy of permissions between the different users. So for example, your security and screening analyst does not have views into the payment information, for example, or the project coordinator or the person who sets up the funding programs, for example, doesn't see the application information. So a lot of permission-based roles can be set up within the system itself. And there's also document management. As we saw, it can be set up to open up documents and store them within the system or within integrated applications like SharePoint. Just a quick overview in terms of SaaS package. So if you're looking for something in terms of getting the system enabled for your organization, we provide Grant Plus for scholarships as a software as a service package. There's two levels that we can provide that information. One is basically a single grant or contribution program or a scholarship program, for example, which includes the Power Apps and Power Pages portal that we saw today. It includes some service elements in terms of like setting up the environment, providing some configuration support to get you started, and also help desk services in terms of providing support after it goes into production. Then there's a second at a higher level, which is the enterprise level, where multiple programs can be set up. It does include the same kind of package in terms of Power Apps and Power Pages portal, and additional elements in terms of setting up the environments, getting a whole program management team set up, getting business analysis and user story development done through an agile process, putting up grant support in terms of getting that configuration going, and in support documents and help desk support additionally in terms of that. We've kind of noted these benefits already. There's a rapid implementation. So within a few weeks, the system can be set up to be live in production, depending on the scope of the implementation. It is fully integrated with, it is possible to be fully integrated with Microsoft 365 because it's all Microsoft services. It improves the efficiency on grant processing time. So for example, the time between starting the application and getting to the closure, the turnaround time can be improved without having to do a lot of manual processing, for example. It adapts to ever evolving digital strategies. So a lot of changes Microsoft introduces new features, new capabilities often enough that it adapts, and it can, if your digital strategies are moving to a certain area, it can adapt to that as well. It supports more standard business models. So if your business model has a certain framework, the system can be configured to adapt to that. We talked about third-party integration using Power Automate, where we can integrate with multiple different systems using APIs, data connectors, etc. Reporting is quite easy to set up in terms of risks, financial and performance reporting, and any other kind of reporting that you might need. And as we mentioned, it is user-friendly and accessible. So a lot of different people can come in and access the system. Any questions today? And I'd also like to show this slide in terms of if you'd like to contact us, please feel free to use any of these options to get in touch with us at any time.
Just one thing to clarify regarding the actual system that when you were talking about it there, Divya, and specifically Protected B. Protected B is a Canadian government term. The American government uses the CUI term, so Controlled Unclassified Information. And the system is actually certified to do that as well. The American federal government actually has an entire Microsoft data center, and basically their own personal cloud that services the federal government.
Thank you, Todd. That's a good clarification.
Just had to add that.
Yeah. Not seeing any hands up. Just give it another minute, maybe, if anyone has questions. So what we'll do is we will be sending out this slide deck and the YouTube recording of this session today. And if you have any questions in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact us, and we'll be happy to answer questions and also do an additional demo if needed for other participants in your organization. I think that concludes our session today. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.